Hello there. Tonight we explore the fragility of the walls we build to keep the darkness out, and the terror that unfolds when they are breached. In our journey, we will listen to 3 unsettling home invasion stories. You'll drift through the tales of a writer whose silent world is shattered by a masked figure she cannot hear, a family whose road trip detours into a deadly game of cat and mouse, and a young couple stranded in a remote cabin who learn that some doors should never, ever be answered. If this kind of quiet storytelling helps you find rest, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you a sense of peace. And let us know in the comments, what's the most comforting sound for you when you're home alone at night? It's always fascinating to know what brings others comfort. It is time now. Dim the lights. Let the quiet of the house be your sanctuary. The stories are waiting. Let's begin. Deep within a dense forest, where moonlight struggles to pierce the canopy, a man's ragged breaths tear through the silence. He runs with a desperate energy, his feet catching on unseen roots and tangled undergrowth. After a frantic scramble through the darkness, his momentum is abruptly halted as he trips over a piece of wood, his body falling hard against the forest floor. A sharp, searing pain shoots through his leg, rendering any further movement impossible. As he lies there, helpless, 2 figures emerge from the surrounding shadows, their forms made indistinct by the gloom. They approach him slowly, the moonlight glinting off the axes they hold. And with a final, swift motion, one of them extinguishes his struggle. Far from that forgotten darkness, the open road unfolds for Maya and her boyfriend Ryan. They are on the 3rd day of a cross-country journey, a rolling celebration of their 5th anniversary. The comfortable intimacy of the car momentarily distracts them, a shared romantic glance that nearly ends in a collision with an oncoming truck, but a sharp turn of the wheel pulls them back from the brink. As they continue their journey, a sense of unease begins to creep in. Maya notices that the GPS on her phone has gone dark, the screen showing no signal, leaving them adrift in a landscape of unfamiliar trees and winding roads. Realizing they are well and truly lost, they eventually happen upon a small town that appears like a half-forgotten memory. Their sign reads Venus, and seeing a diner glowing with a warm, inviting light, they decide to stop for something to eat. Inside, the low hum of conversation and the clinking of cutlery provide a temporary comfort. They meet another couple who, by coincidence, are also celebrating an anniversary. When Maya mentions that she and Ryan have been together for 5 years, but are not yet married, a subtle but distinct strangeness ripples through the people around them, their friendly expressions tightening for just a moment. Later, while paying their bill at the counter, they overhear fragments of a conversation about a man named Jeff, last seen in this very diner before he vanished without a trace. As they return to their car, ready to leave the unsettling atmosphere behind, the turn of the key is met only with a defeated click. The engine will not start. A figure suddenly appears at the car window, a startling presence that makes them both jump. The man introduces himself as Rudy, the owner of a nearby garage, and after a brief inspection, he informs them that the alternator is broken and will need to be replaced. He explains that the necessary part must come from a dealer in another town, a dealer that is already closed for the night. A seed of suspicion begins to form in Ryan's mind, a feeling that this sequence of events is too convenient to be a coincidence. He quietly accuses the mechanic of tampering with their car, but Maya, ever the pragmatist, calms him down and accepts Rudy's offer to have someone drive them to a nearby Airbnb. Another employee from the diner, a woman named Shelley, offers them a ride, and soon they arrive at a secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods. Maya finds it charming, a welcome change from a sterile hotel room. Later, however, they discover the refrigerator isn't working. Finding the owner's phone number on the fridge door, Maya steps outside into the cool night air to make the call. The line goes to voicemail and she leaves a message, her voice a small sound in the vast, dark expanse. That night, as they settle in, a strange, distinct knock echoes from the front door. When Ryan opens it, a young woman stands on the porch, her face partially obscured by shadow, and a soft voice inquires about someone named Tamara. Maya replies that she must have the wrong house, and the girl turns and walks away into the darkness without another word. They find the encounter deeply odd, especially given their remote location. A short while later, they see her again, a silent figure standing at a distance simply watching them. When Ryan flicks on the porch light, the space she occupied is suddenly empty. They try to dismiss the event, their conversation turning to past trips and warmer memories, but their talk is cut short when Ryan is seized by a sudden asthma attack. In a moment of dawning dread, Maya realizes his inhaler is still in their car, miles away. Ryan, ever resourceful, suggests using an old motorcycle parked outside the cabin to make the trip back to town. Alone in the vast, quiet cabin, Maya connects with her friend Debbie on a video call, the digital voice a fragile link to the outside world. The call is interrupted by the sound of something falling elsewhere in the house. Thinking Ryan has returned, she ends the call and goes to investigate but finds nothing. The house is still and empty. Then comes another knock on the door, more insistent this time. She peers through the peephole but sees no one. Suddenly, the same girl's face fills the small lens, her voice repeating the same question about Tamara. Maya firmly replies that no one by that name is there, and when she looks again, the girl is still standing there unmoving. Maya locks the door, but the knocking continues, a steady, rhythmic beat against the wood. She hears footsteps moving away and sinks onto the couch, her anxiety mounting. She reaches for her phone, only to realize it is missing from the table where she left it. After a frantic search, she finds it nearby, but her relief is shattered by the sound of a girl's voice, singing a strange, unnerving song from somewhere outside. A glance out the window reveals nothing but empty darkness, a sight that only deepens her fear. She calls Ryan, but it goes to voicemail, her message a hurried plea for him to return quickly. Meanwhile, Ryan arrives at the dark, silent garage. As he retrieves the inhaler from their car, Rudy appears out of the shadows, his sudden presence startling. Ryan explains the situation, and Rudy responds with a strange, off-key joke about mistaking him for a thief. Back at the cabin, Maya sits at an old piano, the melody she plays a fragile defense against the oppressive silence. She is completely unaware that she is not alone in the room. In a chair behind her, a figure sits perfectly still, a silent observer clad in the guise of a scarecrow. After a time, the figure vanishes as silently as it appeared. Later, as Maya stands in the shower, the presence returns, a fleeting shape in the steam, but when she turns, there is nothing there. Soon after, the cabin is plunged into total darkness as the power cuts out. A sound of something falling draws her from the bathroom, and in the gloom, she encounters another stalker, a different form, which sends a wave of terror through her. She rushes upstairs, hiding herself in a small storage room, her breath held tight in her chest as she hears someone approaching. The door opens, and to her immense relief, it is Ryan. He helps her restore the power, and she explains what she saw, a figure in a creepy mask with large, eerie eyes. Ryan, trying to be rational, checks the area and finds a painting, suggesting that in the dim light her mind might have played tricks on her, a common occurrence in an unfamiliar house. His reassurances are cut short by another knock at the door. Frustrated, Ryan opens it to find no one there, but in the distance, they both see the same girl, standing motionless, staring at them. Ryan moves toward her, determined to confront the strange visitor, but she turns and runs into the woods before he can reach her. He shouts a warning into the darkness, threatening to call the police if she returns. Back inside, they try to find a moment of normalcy, sitting down to eat, but their meal is disturbed when something drips onto their food from above. Looking up, they see a dead bird hanging from the ceiling, a grotesque offering suspended above their table. Panic finally takes hold. They rush to secure all the doors and windows, but their efforts are met with the splintering sound of an axe striking the front door. Terrified, they lock themselves in a room. A short time later, the scarecrow figure breaks through the door, axe in hand. It stands there for a long moment, a silent, menacing presence, and then, inexplicably, it turns and leaves. Believing the immediate danger has passed, they cautiously make their way downstairs. Ryan finds his phone, but the screen is shattered and useless. They decide their only option is to leave, but as they step outside, the motorcycle erupts in a ball of flame. The Scarecrow Man is there again, forcing them to scramble back into the house. Hiding in the washroom, Maya remembers that the cabin's owner is a hunter, and reasons there might be a rifle hidden somewhere. She also notes the house's raised foundation, suggesting a crawl space beneath that could offer a means of escape. They crawl into the tight, dark space under the house, the smell of damp earth filling their lungs. In the darkness, Maya's hand strikes a nail, and a sharp scream escapes her lips, a sound that instantly betrays their location to a new figure, this one in a pin-up girl mask. Ryan quickly pulls the nail from her hand, and despite the pain, they manage to crawl out the other side and run toward a nearby shed. Along the way, Ryan trips, his inhaler falling unnoticed to the ground. Inside the pitch-dark shed, Maya flicks her lighter, the tiny flame illuminating the space and revealing the pin-up girl standing ominously behind them. They search frantically for the rifle but find nothing. Ryan grabs an axe for protection and goes upstairs in search of the gun, leaving Maya below. As the pin-up girl appears and is about to attack, the Scarecrow bursts through a window, and the two figures confront each other. In the confusion, Ryan finds the rifle and fires a shot, forcing the attackers to retreat. They leave the shed and head back toward the cabin, but strange noises from the porch send another jolt of fear through them. In a moment of pure panic, Ryan fires the rifle at the figure making the noise. As they approach, a horrifying realization dawns on them. The person on the ground is not wearing a mask. It is Joe, the cabin owner, who had come to fix the refrigerator. Overcome with guilt and horror, they decide to use Joe's vehicle to escape. But as they drive away, a truck smashes into them, the Scarecrow at the wheel. Maya manages to climb out of the wreckage, but Ryan is trapped, his leg pinned. He urges her to go, to save herself, and reluctantly she runs for help. Ryan prepares to defend himself, but the Scarecrow attacks with an axe, and he disappears into the darkness. Alone, Maya tries to call for help, but the call fails due to the poor service. Hiding, she discovers a corpse lying next to her, and in her panic, she is confronted by a third figure, this one with a doll face mask, who knocks her unconscious. Elsewhere, Ryan confronts the pin-up girl, holding her at gunpoint, demanding to know where Maya is. Instead of answering, she begins to laugh and dance mockingly. Before Ryan can react, the Scarecrow sneaks up behind him and knocks him out. When they regain consciousness, they are tied to chairs inside the cabin. In a moment of shared despair, Ryan proposes to Maya, and through her tears she accepts. Their brief, heartbreaking moment is shattered when the pin-up girl stabs Ryan. The three masked intruders stand before them. Distraught, Maya demands to know why they are doing this. The pin-up girl responds with two cold, simple words, "Because you're here." The Scarecrow then stabs Maya, and she is left gravely injured as the sound of approaching sirens sends the attackers fleeing into the night. She awakens later in the sterile white of a hospital room, having somehow survived. As she slowly rises from the bed, she fails to notice the silent form of the Scarecrow, lying quietly in the bed beside her. How thin is the veil of normalcy we wrap around ourselves, and how little does it take for a random knock, a strange question, to tear it all away? But what if the safety of your own walls was just an illusion, and the real danger wasn't a spirit within, but a stranger, waiting just outside the door? The deep quiet of a secluded trailer park named Gatlin Lake is disturbed only by the low hum of electricity and the distant cry of a nocturnal bird. In the stillness of the early morning hours, A truck's engine cuts through the silence as it pulls to a stop before one of the trailers. Inside, an elderly couple rests in the peaceful oblivion of sleep until the wife is gently pulled from her dreams by a series of sharp, insistent knocks on the door. She moves with the caution of her years, peering through the glass to see only the empty truck, its headlights off, sitting like a hollow metal shell. When she turns, a figure wearing a doll's mask fills her vision, and a moment later, the trailer falls silent once more. The masked girl then moves to the bedroom, her movements fluid and without sound, settling beside the slumbering man who remains undisturbed in his final moments of peace. The next day, under the indifferent light of the sun, a different kind of journey begins. A couple, Cindy and Mike, are methodically packing their car, the movements betraying a quiet tension. Their teenage daughter, Kinsey, is the source of this friction, a rebellious spirit who has pushed her parents to a difficult decision: a boarding school. As a final, perhaps futile attempt at family unity, they plan a short stay at a trailer park owned by their Uncle Marvin in a place called Gatlin Lake. Along the way, they stop for their son, Luke, pulling him away from a baseball game with his friends. The air inside the car grows heavy with unspoken grievances as the siblings trade barbs, the cost of the boarding school hanging between them like a shroud. Cindy, attempting to maintain a semblance of normalcy, leaves a voicemail for her uncle, explaining that their arrival will be delayed. They stop at a roadside diner, a small island of light in the growing dusk. Kinsey remains outside, a solitary figure leaning against the car, a thin plume of cigarette smoke curling into the air. Cindy joins her, her words a soft attempt to bridge the chasm that has opened between them. The conversation is strained, a familiar pattern of teenage frustration met with parental concern. Kinsey speaks of mistakes as a normal part of growing up, while Cindy counters with the quiet fear that some mistakes leave permanent scars, her only wish being a better future for her daughter. Their arrival at the trailer park is met with an oppressive quiet. The entire place is deserted, cloaked in an unnatural stillness that makes the crunch of their tires on the gravel sound like a transgression. Slightly unnerved, they find the front office empty, a key to their designated trailer left for them, with a simple note from Uncle Marvin, promising to see them in the morning. They navigate the dark, winding paths until they find trailer number 47, a small prefabricated home that is meant to be their sanctuary for the night. As they settle in, they find it stocked with food and supplies, a small comfort in the unnerving silence. And then, the silence is broken by a knock at the door. Cindy opens it to find a young woman standing in the deep shadows just beyond the porch light. The woman's face is obscured, and she asks for someone named Tamara. Cindy calmly explains that she must have the wrong address. Without another word, the girl turns and is swallowed by the darkness. The family shares a moment of confusion at the strange encounter, but dismisses it as a simple mistake. Later, an attempt at a family card game falters. Luke joins his parents, but Kinsey remains distant, a fortress of teenage angst. Mike approaches her, his voice low and sincere, trying to convey that the decision to send her away is a heavy burden for them all, born not of anger but of a desperate hope for her well-being. His words seem to find a crack in her armor, but it is not enough. She puts her phone down, but the fragile piece is shattered as she storms out of the trailer into the night. Cindy holds Mike back, suggesting that Luke should be the one to follow her. Luke finds his sister a short distance away, the glow of her cigarette a tiny ember in the vast darkness. He tries to reason with her, framing the boarding school not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for a fresh start. His words, however, fail to land, bouncing off her carefully constructed walls of defiance. Back in the trailer, Cindy and Mike are left with their own doubts, questioning the path they have chosen for their daughter. Their quiet conversation is interrupted by another knock, louder this time. It is the same young woman from before, once again asking for Tamara. A flicker of unease turns into a cold dread as Mike asks if she is all right, only to be met with the same unnerving silence before she disappears again. A shared, unspoken fear prompts them to go out in search of their children. Meanwhile, Luke and Kinsey, wandering aimlessly through the deserted park, come across a trailer with its door slightly ajar. Driven by a mix of boredom and curiosity, they step inside. The air is stale and heavy. A sudden thud from the bedroom sends a jolt of fear through them. They move cautiously toward the sound, discovering only the family dog, a moment of relief that is immediately extinguished. On the windows, scrawled in a dark crimson substance, is a single word: hello. Kinsey notices a shape covered by a simple white sheet. Beneath it, the reason for the park's silence becomes horribly clear. The siblings flee into the night, their panicked footsteps echoing in the stillness, until they collide with their parents. The words tumble out of them, a frantic explanation of what they discovered in their uncle's trailer. Mike, taking charge, sends the girls back to their own trailer with instructions to call for help, while he and Luke go to confirm the horrifying discovery. Back in the perceived safety of Trailer 47, Cindy tries to comfort a shaken Kinsey, but their sense of security evaporates when they see their cell phones lying smashed on the table. One device flickers with a sliver of life, and Cindy desperately tries to make a call, but it is too late. A figure in a doll's mask appears in the doorway. Mother and daughter retreat to the bathroom, the flimsy lock their only defense. They notice a small skylight in the ceiling, a desperate chance for escape. As they struggle to open it, the bathroom door begins to splinter. Cindy manages to push her daughter through the opening onto the roof, but as she tries to follow, the masked figure breaks through. Kinsey can only watch from above as her mother's strength fades, a life extinguished in a moment of silent, brutal violence. Kinsey has no choice but to run, scrambling across the roof and dropping into the darkness below. In Uncle Marvin's trailer, Mike and Luke stand over the bodies, the reality of their situation settling in like a physical weight. The landline is dead, the wire severed. Mike finds the answering machine and plays a message. It is Cindy's voicemail from earlier that day. A chilling realization dawns on them. Their arrival was not a surprise. A rock shatters a nearby window and they see him, a tall man in a sack mask, an axe held loosely in one hand. They hide, and Mike remembers a gun his uncle kept. He finds it, loads it, and calls out into the darkness, his voice steady, giving the man 5 seconds. He counts, and when he looks again, the space where the man stood is empty. They use the opportunity to flee. Kinsey runs through the darkened park, a fence blocking her path. The doll-masked figure is in pursuit, forcing her to change direction deeper into the labyrinth of trailers. Mike and Luke return to their trailer to find it empty, the bathroom door destroyed, and Cindy's lifeless form on the floor. Shielding his son from the sight, Mike's grief is momentarily eclipsed by a single driving purpose: find Kinsey. They get in their car, calling her name into the night, until a brick smashes through their windshield, sending the vehicle careening into the side of another trailer. Alone and terrified, Kinsey sees the distant flicker of headlights. A surge of hope turns to ice as she realizes it is the truck belonging to the man with the axe. She runs, finding refuge in a small playground tunnel. The truck stops, its engine idling, and she screams for him to leave her alone. From the other end of the tunnel, a third figure appears, a woman with a pin-up style mask. "We're just getting started," she says, her voice devoid of emotion. Kinsey scrambles away. Inside the crashed car, Mike is gravely injured, pinned by a wooden beam. Knowing his time is short, he presses the gun into Luke's hand, urging him to leave, to find his sister. A tearful goodbye is exchanged, a promise to return that they both know is a lie. As Luke disappears, the man in the sack mask opens the car door and gets in. Mike begs him, asks him why, but the man says nothing, simply turning on the car's radio as music fills the small space. A final curse escapes Mike's lips before a single, swift motion ends his life. Kinsey takes shelter in another trailer, drawn by the faint sound of music. It leads her to a jack-in-the-box toy on a bed. As she approaches, the blankets erupt and Dollface lunges, stabbing her in the arm and leg. Luke appears in the doorway, gun raised, but he hesitates, unable to pull the trigger. He grabs his sister and they escape, finding another empty trailer to hide in. Kinsey's composure finally breaks, guilt and grief pouring out of her. The moment is shattered as the killer's truck smashes through the wall. They leap from a window, but Kinsey's injured leg gives way. Luke hides her under a porch, promising to get help, and runs towards the front office. At the office, Luke manages to get through to 911, but the line goes dead before he can give his location. He is surrounded. The pin-up girl appears behind him as the man with the axe batters the front door. Luke escapes out the back, finding himself by the eerie, illuminated water of a large swimming pool. He manages to knock the pin-up girl down, and in a surge of adrenaline, stabs her repeatedly until she is still. But the man with the axe appears, and a silent, desperate struggle beneath the water's surface ensues. Luke is stabbed in the back and left to sink as the man moves on. Moments later, Kinsey finds him, pulling his bleeding body from the water and hiding him before limping towards the main road for help. She flags down a police truck, but as she pleads with the officer, Dollface appears out of the darkness and slashes the officer's throat. Kinsey scrambles into the truck, but the keys are gone. Dollface dangles them outside the window before forcing her way in. In the struggle, Kinsey's hand finds the officer's shotgun. A deafening roar eclipses the night. She pulls the mask from the dying girl's face and asks, "Why?" The answer comes as a whisper, "Why not?" As she starts the truck to go back for her brother, the man in the sack mask crashes his own vehicle into hers. The impact throws her from the cab. The man's truck is damaged, leaking gasoline. Kinsey sees her chance, and with a flick of her lighter, a bloom of orange light engulfs both vehicles. But he is not finished. The burning truck lurches forward, a funeral pyre on wheels driving towards her. She makes it to a small, narrow bridge before collapsing. The man emerges from the flaming wreckage, his body burned, a large piece of glass impaled in his abdomen. He pulls it free, takes a few steps, and then collapses. Kinsey makes it to the highway and stops a passing truck. But as the driver looks on in horror, the burned man rises once more. Kinsey climbs into the back of the truck as he follows. She finds a baseball bat and swings with all her remaining strength. The heavy form tumbles from the truck, finally coming to rest on the cold asphalt. The quiet of the hospital room is different from the quiet of the park. It is a sterile, temporary peace. Luke is recovering. Kinsey sits beside him, lost in the memories of the night. The trauma will be a scar on her soul forever. But they survived. The silence is broken by a soft yet distinct knock echoing from the door. When the familiar sounds of the night return, how can one ever be certain they are truly alone? But what if the silence that defined your world was the one thing that could also conceal your end? In a small house nestled deep within the woods, the quiet rhythm of a solitary life unfolds. Inside, a woman named Maddie prepares her dinner, the gentle sizzle of asparagus in a pan, and the soft hum of the oven being sensations felt rather than heard. She carefully reads the instructions for a sauce, a slight frown crossing her face as she tastes it, a flavor that doesn't quite meet her expectations. A message illuminates her phone screen, a friendly invitation from her neighbor, Sarah, to which she agrees. After plugging her computer in to charge, she continues the silent conversation on her phone before calling her cat in for its meal, the gentle clatter of kibble in a bowl, a familiar vibration. Soon, a figure can be seen approaching the house through the trees. Maddie steps out onto the porch to greet her. Sarah immediately begins to converse in sign language, her movements enthusiastic but still a little clumsy. Maddie, who is deaf, can read lips perfectly, but she patiently allows her friend to practice. Sarah expresses her admiration for Maddie's latest book, admitting that she tried to guess the ending but was completely surprised by the outcome. Maddie explains that her writer's brain is a constant cascade of possibilities, a place where every potential outcome plays out like a silent film, making it difficult to quiet the voices within. When Sarah asks what her inner voice sounds like, Maddie simply signs that it sounds like her mother. Suddenly, a piercing shriek fills the air, and a bright light flashes from the ceiling. They both move quickly inside, where Maddie disables the fire alarm, while Sarah rescues the lamb from the oven. In the commotion, the cat slips out into the night. Sarah remarks on how loud the alarm is, but Maddie explains that it needs to be powerful enough for her to feel the vibrations even in her sleep. Later, sitting on the porch, they talk about the escaped cat, with Maddie reassuring Sarah that the animal is fiercely independent and will return. Sarah invites her over for a meal, her own dinner now ruined, but Maddie declines, needing to get back to her work. Before she leaves, Sarah rehearses the new signs she has learned, her hands forming the words with careful concentration. Once alone, Maddie sees a message from a man named Craig, a name that seems to hold some weight, but she deletes it without a reply. As the night deepens, Maddie sits at her computer, the soft glow illuminating her face as she works on her new novel. She methodically thinks through various endings, but none seem to feel right. Reaching a creative impasse, she initiates a video call to Craig, only to end it before the connection can be established. He tries to call her back, but she ignores the persistent notifications on her laptop and phone. Turning her attention to the lingering mess in the kitchen, she begins to clean her back to the glass door. At that moment, Sarah appears, her hands banging desperately against the glass, her face a mask of pure terror. Maddie, lost in her own silent world, doesn't notice. An arrow finds its mark, and Sarah's life ends right there, just inches away from a window that offered no salvation. The killer observes from the darkness, tapping on the glass to test the silence within. Realizing she cannot hear him, he drags the body away into the shadows. Craig continues to call, his digital presence a faint echo in a house now under siege. Maddie returns to her writing, oblivious to the fact that the house is no longer empty. The man has slipped inside, moving with a ghost-like quietness. He stands directly behind her as she lets out a small laugh at her own writer's block. The sudden chime of a video call from her sister makes the intruder retreat just out of frame. They talk for a moment about her novel and then about Craig. Her sister encourages her to move on, to stop isolating herself in the woods and come back to the city. As they speak, the man picks up Maddie's phone from the counter. Her sister sees the movement on camera, but Maddie dismisses it as her cat. After saying their goodbyes, Maddie tries to summon the cat, using the familiar vibration of food in its bowl, but the house remains still. She searches upstairs and down, but the animal is nowhere to be found. Leaving the front door slightly ajar, she returns to her desk. A moment later, a message appears on her computer screen. It contains a series of pictures of her, taken just moments ago from outside the house. The last image is of her at this very second looking at the pictures. Fear, cold and sharp, washes over her as she cautiously moves toward the door. There on her porch stands the masked man. He holds up her phone, a silent declaration, and she slams the door shut just as he lunges. He tries every door and window, a methodical predator testing the boundaries of his cage. When he finds no immediate entry, he disappears around the side of the house. Maddie rushes to her computer to call for help, but with a sudden click, the power cuts out. The house is plunged into darkness and an even deeper silence. She tries to connect to Sarah's network, but she doesn't know the password. The man toys with her, his shadowy form appearing and disappearing outside the windows before he vanishes into the woods. She watches as he slashes the tires on her car, severing her last link to the outside world. With a trembling hand, she writes a message on the glass of the door, illuminating it with a flashlight. The man reads it, and slowly, deliberately, removes his mask. He mouths the words, asking if she can read his lips, and she nods. He tells her that he knows she is alone, that no one is coming for her. He says he can get in whenever he wants, but he will wait. He will wait until she truly wants to die. Maddie retreats into the house, grabbing a knife and a hammer, her mind racing. She barricades herself in the bedroom, pulling the curtains shut, but a shadow moving across the window betrays his presence. He knocks and she can see the faint movement of the shadows on the ground. When she peeks out, she sees him using Sarah's lifeless body to tap against the glass. The sight breaks her, and she collapses in the living room, tears streaming down her face. A memory surfaces, Sarah putting her phone into her back pocket. Maddie fumbles for her car keys and manages to activate the car alarm, its flashing lights a desperate beacon in the night. The man is drawn to the noise, giving her a precious few seconds. She runs back to the porch, searching Sarah's pockets for the phone, but he returns too quickly. As she scrambles back inside, she slams the window down on his hand. She grabs her knife and stabs him, forcing him to retreat, bleeding. He realizes what she was after and holds up Sarah's phone before placing it back on the body just out of reach. He continues to probe the house's defenses, his movements a constant, silent threat. She manages to slip outside, hiding under the porch as he walks directly above her, the vibrations of his footsteps the only sign of his location. He circles the house, trying to trick her out of hiding. When she finally makes a run for it, he fires his crossbow, the bolts whizzing past her in the dark. She gets back inside, locking the door once more, and climbs to the second floor. From a high window, she watches him, and when he moves to the front of the house, she climbs out onto the roof at the back. He is distracted for a moment by the flashlight she throws into the woods, giving her a chance to climb down. But he is there waiting. He shoots her in the leg. As he climbs up to finish the job, she pulls the arrow from her flesh, pushes him off the roof and grabs his crossbow. She fumbles with the unfamiliar weapon, giving him time to climb back up. She gets inside just in time, pointing the crossbow at him and scaring him away. In the bathroom, she tends to her wound, the pain sharp and searing. She tries to load the crossbow, but her hands tremble, and she lacks the strength. Through the small bathroom window, the man watches her struggle. At the front door, another man appears. It is John, Sarah's boyfriend. He cannot be heard by Maddie, but the killer sees him. John notices the message on the door and reaches for his phone to call the police, but the killer intercepts him, pretending to be an officer. He spins a convincing tale of a break-in, of a suspect who escaped, disarming John with a veneer of authority. He asks to use John's phone to call for backup, pocketing it when he's done. As they talk, a small object falls from the killer's pocket, one of Sarah's earrings. John recognizes it instantly. His questions become more pointed, trying to catch the man in his lie. Inside, Maddie continues her desperate attempts to arm herself. Outside, John, now certain he is not dealing with a police officer, tries to create an opportunity. He mentions a hidden key, and as the killer bends down to look for it, John picks up a rock. Just as he is about to strike, Maddie, seeing him, bangs on the window to warn him. The distraction is fatal. The killer stabs John, who, with his last ounce of strength, tackles the man and screams for Maddie to run. In Maddie's mind, a scenario plays out. She runs, he catches her, it ends. Her inner voice tells her it's futile. She is still inside the house as John dies on her lawn. One by one, she considers every option: hiding, fighting, waiting. Each path ends in failure. She is losing blood, growing weaker. She cannot run, she cannot hide, and she cannot wait. And then, with a sudden, chilling clarity, she knows what she must do. She must kill him. The man, meanwhile, goes through John's pockets, finds a pack of cigarettes and sits on her car, deciding to let her bleed a little longer. Her cat appears, and as he crouches down to it, an arrow from the crossbow strikes him. Maddie has made her move. She runs back inside and he slams the door on her hand, breaking it before she can lock it. He tells her he is coming in. She stands facing the door and writes a message in her own blood on the glass. "Do it, coward." While he retrieves a tire iron from her car, she types his description into a document on her laptop, a final message for whoever finds her. As he smashes the glass, she hides in the bathroom and waits. Her consciousness begins to fade. She doesn't notice him enter through the window behind her until she feels his breath on her neck. She dodges his knife and stabs him, running to the kitchen before collapsing. He limps toward her, but she sprays his eyes with wasp repellent and activates the fire alarm, the shrieking vibrations disorienting him. In the ensuing struggle, just as he is about to overpower her, her hand finds a corkscrew and she ends his life. With her remaining strength, she retrieves her phone from his pocket and dials 911. Later, she sits on her porch, her cat beside her, as the flashing lights of the police finally arrive. How strange it is that a life lived in complete silence must end in such a deafening roar of violence. Our stories come to a close. If you need another tale to quiet your mind, a playlist is now on the screen. A gentle click is all it takes to let the stories continue uninterrupted. Whatever you choose, rest well.